First of all, thank you so much, Ali, for that emotional journey. It was unexpected, but it was really heartwarming. So yeah, again, really, really thanks for that. And it's so nice to see so many familiar and also new faces all together here tonight. So I wanted also to thank Evolution and all the sponsors for making that happen. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much, guys. I think that's the right button. Let's see. Yes. So I'm Cristian Deri, and I'm working as engineering director for electronic arts, focusing on the Battlefield franchise in the Battlefield QV team. David, as Paul already shared with us, was supposed to be here, and we had a nice interaction story that we wanted to put together, but I will be guiding you through the entirety of our story tonight. Working in Battlefield QV as director of engineering means that I'm focusing on things like test automation, infrastructure. How do we ensure that our game is as solid as possible throughout the entirety of our development workflow? Before we go into the details of what that means on a daily basis, I wanted to ask a question. Raise your hand if you have shipped a game which contained 100% of the content and features that you wanted to make. I really want to speak to you. Show us the way, please. It's tough, spoiler alert, right? And we've all been in those final 6 months that Ferras was talking about earlier, where everything is crunching and it's really tough. We have a lot of tough decisions to make, right? And what we wanted to talk about tonight is how can we reduce the amount of tough decision that we make at the last part of our delivery plan by anticipating as much as possible some of those decisions early on. Let's continue with a controversial statement. The only functional difference between video game development and other software is that there's no upper limit to what we can create. What do we mean by that? Software is software. And yes, of course, the creative component of making that software makes things more complicated. But eventually, there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn between the way that we develop software and the way that other industries develop software. And therefore, there are a lot of learnings that we can actually share between the gaming industry and the rest of the software development industries. So let's assume that we have, of course, fixed resources in our development journey, right? We have a fixed amount of people, and by moving the needle of our efficiency, we can actually squeeze out as many of those features that are in the backlog as possible before we ship the game to our players. So let's have a look at some things that can help us moving the needle towards the right side of this graph. So towards a world where everything we make is perfectly working immediately at the first attempt and doesn't need any iteration. Things like planning and being aware of our dependencies can definitely help because there's less wasted effort on the way to shipping the game. And also, of course, trivially, adding more people most of the times and adding more money can help. But that's a very tough call, right? And therefore, with the constraints that we have, what are the things that are instead dragging us on the left side of the graph? So where in a situation where nothing works, everything is always broken, we can test the game, we can play it, we can iterate on it, and everything is on fire. The time that we spend fixing bugs is, of course, limiting the amount of features that we can put in the game, right? And then iteration. So if we set off to develop A and then we shift back to B and then C, that time is, of course, part of the creative process, but also drag us into a lot of wasted effort. And the list goes on. Difficult tooling, the morale of the team, and constant refactoring of code, of course, makes us less efficient and effective. But and what does this tell us is that quality is not only about the final product that we ship. It's not only about the piece of software that we make. It's about the way we make it. It's about the processes, the tools, how we develop the game, and how we get to that final effort. At Electronic Arts, we look at quality from two separate perspectives. The software quality, so is the game working? Is it performant? Is it stable enough to be put in front of our players proudly? Can we constantly play test it? And that's what we call software quality. And it is fundamental, I will tell you why, because it enables the second aspect of quality that we focus on, which is the experiential quality. Is the game fun? Are our players going to enjoy it? To Farah's point earlier, during those final 6 months, there are going to be a lot of tough calls in terms of prioritization that we want to make. And in order to reduce the amount of those tough calls that we need to make in the last 6 months, we need to prepare earlier. We need to be able to shift left and as early as possible as many of those feedback collections loops that we run usually towards the end of the game development cycle. How do we do that? We need a game that is always working. We need a game that is always performant and stable. And when you have several hundreds of developers spread all over the world, that becomes particularly tough to ensure. This is a solved problem in a lot of our industries. Before joining EA, I actually was working in the telecommunication industry where things are, of course, much more structured and stable. And I've seen a bit of both the extremes, I would say, of the spectrum. There is a lot of insightful learnings that we can actually get from other industries and from literature out there on how to solve the quality versus amount of content issue that we all face during the development of our games. That was not supposed to be so small, but in the red top right circle, you see dev, the development team, and in the bottom left circle, you see quality assurance, what we in EA call quality verification. What we wanted to show here is the typical transactional relationship between quality assurance and development, where development provides builds, and then quality assurance takes the build, run the game, plays the game, and throws a bunch of bugs to the development team, right? That transactional relationship is what we need to fight and find a way to become much more embedded and ensure that quality is part of the development workflow and the development lifecycle instead of an aftermath of the whole development, and something that we care about only when it's probably too late to do so. So fighting the transactional relationship between QA and the development team has been one of my mission and David's mission in our career at EA. And I will give you a bit of more information into how we intended and started tackling this problem within the Battlefield franchise, which is the franchise I support with my team. Quality verification for Battlefield is divided in 3 pillars. So the quality verification or quality assurance org is made of 3 main components. The software quality and technology component, which is my team, that takes care of ensuring that the game is always performant, stable, and working, able to be play tested and shown to our players every day. The experiential quality bit, that is the one that instead is collecting feedback from players, internal playtest feedback as well, and trying to answer the question, are our players going to enjoy what we are set off to build? And we want to answer those questions as soon as possible because we don't want to get to those tough questions in the last 6 months, as we said, right? And then we have the delivery and operation pillar that is instead helping the team ensuring that we can ship the game on time and within the budget set at the beginning. So what I will show you now is a bit of a deep dive into the software quality and technology piece, which is my team, and why we believe is a fundamental component of the cultural shift that we are trying to bring to our team. What's the software quality value proposition? First of all, our biggest customer is the player base that we have. We want to ensure that our game, when they reach the player, they are stable, performance, and that we protect that experiential quality that we wanted to bring to the players, and that their experience is not impacted by performance or stability issues. Then the second big customer and partner in all of this is, of course, the development team. We do what we do to ensure that and support the development team in shipping a robust game to the players. And the last but not least, one of our biggest stakeholders is, of course, the franchise leadership. We want to enable data-driven decision making, and we want to ensure that when time comes, and we need to make those tough decisions that we were talking about earlier, we have all the data available to make those decisions fast and effectively. So we set off to build an entire organization built around this vision. And the result is a team that is embedded in the development team, made of 5 main pillars, each with their own autonomous focus. So different aspects of the software quality, so online workflows, integration testing, stability, performance, functionality, supported by a cross-functional quality engineering team. This allows us to actually work together on a daily basis with the development team on this fundamental component of what a good software is. For reference, for people that are not familiar with Battlefield games, the size of our content is pretty substantial. The last game we shipped had 12 maps with 3 different modes. Player count that goes between 32 and 64 players, 15 characters, specialties, weapons attached, and so on, with cosmetics being, of course, even a big thing that we need to ensure the quality of, right? So the content is huge, and that does not include even the user-generated content that we started enabling with Battlefield Portal. So now we have players that can create any sort of combination of experiences on their own, and we need to ensure that even that part of the game is, of course, stable and working fine. So to test all of these on a daily basis on hundreds of builds that are coming out from our build farms, it would require tens of thousands of hours of testing per day. So manual testing for us is not really was not really in our cards, right? So we had to invest heavily in test automation. And just to mention a bit the scale of that test automation, we run 1.5 million tests plus per month and counting on 25,000 different use cases with tens of thousands of hours played throughout the month by our bots, and 700 of test kits all around the world, playing the game 24/7 and ensuring that actually we can catch bugs as soon as possible. Why is that important? Why is catching bugs as soon as possible so fundamental in the development workflow? Because if we look at the creative iteration loop, catching bugs when someone is actually developing their code or creating content would be extremely cheap. They are the only ones impacted by the bug, and you don't waste other team's member times, right? If we, instead of catching locally, so on the developer's machine, the bug, we have to wait that they try to submit the change to our code base, then we start wasting a lot more resources. We start wasting the test farm kits where we are running this test, and therefore losing a lot of time in the process. But it's still pretty good because this doesn't impact other team members. So other people in the team can actually still work sustainably. What is really bad is when those bugs started entering the code base. So we're not able to catch them early enough, and once they are in the code base, they will start impacting other people's work, right? And they will start increasing the amount of waste in the process. What's even worse than that is we can catch, of course, through our auto test, once the automated test, once the change is submitted and the breakage, unfortunately, is there, we can still find it through automation, but that means that we're going to file bugs, and someone will need to look at those Jira tickets, which we all dislike, as you know. And therefore, again, wasted the time, wasted effort, a lot of cost related to those bugs. And the more we continue through the test pipeline, so as soon as we start actually giving those bugs in the hands of our manual testers, those bugs become even more expensive. And of course, the worst thing that can happen is we don't catch bugs throughout all these loops, and we end up having those bugs in the playtest, affecting maybe our user experience research, our early feedback with players, and therefore becoming unsustainably expensive. So our focus right now is on shifting left as much as possible the defect management process. So finding bugs as soon as possible is paramount to ensure that the game is always working, can be playtested, and that we can iterate better and faster with our creative process. In conclusion, quality is about the entirety of the development process. Should not be an aftermath of it, should not be something that we think only at the end of the development process, but should be something that instead we take into account throughout each and every component and step of the development workflow. It is extremely important to invest in tools, workflows, test automation that can help us catching as early as possible the bugs so that they don't become exceedingly expensive to process and manage. And what we have observed in our journey is that this can happen if and only if quality assurance and the development team are actually deeply embedded and working together to make that happen. And with that, thank you so much for the attention, and see you later.